Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. Isn't it hilarious how the left's little virtue signaling tricks always end up backfiring? The woke brigade, always quick to scream transphobia or bigotry. Well, this endless virtue signaling loop has got the Democrats in quite the pickle here. You know, the left invented the mantra of believe all women, and well, I guess they fell prey to it this time, because the woman that they thought they were believing, well, turned out to be a man. Yeah, it's once again one of those cases of virtue signaling gone wrong. You guys remember when the left was defending Algerian boxer Imane Khalif? They claimed that all the attacks against her were just a bunch of right-wing, far-right bigots and homophobes who are attacking this young girl. Yeah, well, let's just say her blood test just leaked to the media, and once again the left looks absolutely ridiculous after gaslighting us on this topic for months on end. Turns out we were right, and they just blindly believed because that's what the dogma dictated. Let me show you guys exactly what's going on here. Let's start off with a little blast from the past, shall we? We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. Alright folks, so just like I said, let's start off with the blast from the past. Remember this little gem from last year on CNN?
A controversy over gender in women's sports is now unfolding in the Olympic spotlight. In just 46 seconds, Algerian women's boxer Imane Khalif beat her Italian opponent, Angela Carini, in an Olympic boxing match. She burst into tears after the fight and did not shake Khalif's hand. That led to a flood of online abuse against Khalif, including from Elon Musk and former President Trump, who posted this to Truth Social, quote, "I will keep men out of women's sports."
The reality is that people in this country, conservative right being at the top of the list, are weaponizing trans women and the trans community and using that as part of their ongoing culture wars. And this young lady, unfortunately, was the victim of what is a gross American mentality. And I feel so sorry for this young woman who has been subjected to these attacks, when all it boiled down to was that the woman that she competed against realized after getting hit, she couldn't compete. She chose to weaponize this further by crying and by saying it was unjust. There was nothing unjust about it. I mean, to be frank, you just got your butt beat.
And to be clear, this is not a transgender woman. This is a woman who is being used as a poster child to try to convey some other culture war. And the fact that she is being used in that way is something that is just so unbelievable.
Where's Donald Trump's tweets about protecting women and protecting women's sports when we're talking about how women are underinvested in when it comes to sports, and using trans women as a weapon in what is a broader issue about women's sports is frankly disgusting.
If you want to protect women and daughters, she is a woman, she is somebody's daughter, and she's a woman in sports. And it just conjures up that old statement, ain't I a woman?
That's someone's daughter that you're making fun of, you massive bigot. That's what they told us. Pretty much guaranteed. The deal is already sealed. WOMAN. Anyone who questions is a real piece of you-know-what. That was basically the idea going around in this woke fantasy land. Now, fast forward to now, womp womp womp. Thanks to Olympic Press Committee member Alan Abramson, according to his piece in 3 Wire Sports, Imane Khalif's chromosome test, which was conducted at the request of the IBA in both 2022 and 2023, as you see on screen, confirms that Imane Khalif has an XY karyotype male blood reading. In other words, male. That's why Khalif was disqualified from the Women's World Boxing Championship in New Delhi. In other words, they lied. Because again, in the world of leftist thinking, narrative always comes ahead of facts. That's why Democrats seem to prefer shutting down conversation instead of doing actual investigations or audits. I'm sure that rings a lot of bells. Well, that's because it rings true. Narrative was more important. Ooh, these evil right-wing bigots are attacking an innocent woman because they're just a bunch of bigots. Meanwhile, the reality was an Algerian male boxer was beating the crap out of female boxers. Holy crap, the delusion and the destruction baked into left-wing thinking. But finally, it seems like we're headed towards some greener pastures of common sense and basic sanity. This is an absolute victory for women's sports. And maybe, just maybe, this is one of the final L's that the left needed to take for this whole ridiculous this ordeal to come to an end. It took 9 years to come to a basic conclusion, and we're not even really truthfully all the way there yet, although it seems we're getting close, but that conclusion is that male bodies and female bodies are different. Whoa, dude, crazy. This should have been obvious from the start, because it always has been and always will be. Men and women cannot compete in the same competitive leagues. And honestly, that even applies to non-contact sports and even competitive leagues like chess and video games. I mean, simply take a look and across the board, men dominate statistically. Women have their own leagues for a reason. And that really puts it into perspective now, doesn't it? I mean, if women have their own leagues in chess or in video games, if it's not even appropriate for men to compete in those spaces, then imagine how crazy, how insane, how ludicrous it is to do it in boxing. I mean, it takes the insanity to a whole other level. It's downright dangerous. In a combat sport, women should not have to climb in the ring with men who have greater bone density, higher muscle mass, and a whole laundry list of advantages more. It's unfair, and honestly, at one point, it's going to become criminal negligence. The left's insane commitment to inclusion at all costs is putting real women at risk of getting their heads knocked off. And that's really where the focus needs to be, on the leagues and the sporting organizations, because they're the ones who let this stuff happen in the first place. You're telling me the top executives didn't know about these blood tests? Give me a break. These clowns sat on their hands, too scared to rock the boat because they didn't want the cancel mob to descend on them. It's absolutely disgraceful, because it's their job, literally their job, to make sure that these competitors are safe and the playing field is level. But instead, they cave to the woke mob, ignoring obvious physical differences in such a glaring case as this. They completely dismiss legitimate concerns, and in front of our very eyes, they let a biological male, at least what seems to be allegedly a biological male, in the woman's ring. And it's actually not just not knowing about these tests or potentially ignoring them, but also the fact that they failed themselves to do a simple chromosome test, something that should have been mandatory since day one. They let this happen because they couldn't do the basic screening that was required, and that right there is neglect of duty. And now these organizations are scrambling to cover their behinds, but their negligence could have been dangerous. They created a dangerous situation for female athletes just so they could virtue signal about inclusivity. It's an absolute utter disgrace. They're supposed to protect the sports, protect the athletes, and of course protect the integrity of the game, and they failed on all fronts. Every single one of these organizations, in my view, needs to be held accountable. The trophies and medals need to be rescinded and given to the rightful female winners. This is the line in the sand, folks. Enough is enough. No more men in women's sports, no more emotionally charged debates, and no more of these clearly blatant lies from the left. It's time to frickin' stop.
Stop it. Get some help.
And that's not bigotry speaking, that's reality speaking. Women deserve their spaces, and that's not just their sports leagues, that's their bathrooms, their spas. It's about every space that was designed historically and rightfully to protect and empower women. It's not rocket science, folks. These spaces exist for a reason. And the left's notion that gender identity should essentially trump biological reality, well, this concept needs to be thrown in the trash. You know, women fought tooth and nail to be able to play sports and compete in sports, to have their own leagues, to have their own spaces, and now the woke dogma, the woke activism, is essentially arguing to erase those spaces. It's ideological malpractice across the frickin' board, and it should end today. Anyways, that's what I got for you guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.